Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Patron Hangout number 188. Welcome, everybody, especially those who are here in the chat room. Well, actually, the people in the chat room, because this is a patron-only hangout. So if you want to be in the chat room, guess what? You got to click on the link below and join Patreon. And it's $5 a month, 8 live shows a month that you can participate in, and it helps this channel. If you don't want to do that, please just subscribe to the channel. Once I finish the lives, all of my shows are public, so you get to see them all. Hey, Allison, you just rolled in, and Princess just rolled in. Okay. I'm trying to read your comments. Now, before I start, just in terms of honesty, you'll see me sometimes without my glasses. You'll see me sometimes with my glasses, and you're like, what the hell? Actually, I have 2 pairs of glasses. Actually, I have. Wait till you see what I actually have. So I actually have like a pile of glasses. Now, what happened in the past was that as I grew older, which unfortunately I have, you hate it when it happens, but you just can't stop it. I suddenly needed reading glasses, and I hated reading glasses because when I put them on, it was like I could only see this much and everything else was a blur, and it made me very unhappy. I wanted to see my computer. I wanted to see the person across the table. And I found these glasses. Oh, no, that's not it. Maybe. I've got so many of them. I have, this is it. No, that's not it either. What? Maybe it is this one. But anyway, I think it was this one. Let me check. They look kind of big. I'm not. Let's say a bunch of them. But anyway, I found these great glasses on, I think it was at CVS or some drugstore. And for $35, I got trifocals. And all I did was, you go in, you put your glasses on, you see what you can read. And then what it does is that's the reading one. And then the next level is for the computer. And the last level is empty so you can see. And I was so thrilled. It was just the most amazing thing. So I bought like 4 pairs. So I had one by the computer, one by the bed, one in the car, one for when I lost one of the other 3. And I was so happy for like 4 years. And then one day I realized I was having trouble seeing with the glasses on. And those are the glasses I always use for my shows. And suddenly I couldn't see with them on. I'm like, what the heck? I took them off and I could see without the glasses. I could read without the glasses. And I'm like, this is unique, until I found out that it was a sign of cataracts. And I'm like, well, this sucks now, so now I can read, but I can't see in the distance. So I went in and I got these glasses. So I have these trifocals and I have these just driving ones. And it lasted about 6 months. And then I was having trouble seeing, which is why you saw me not wearing these, because I couldn't see properly. So I went back in and the eye doctor said, okay, well, we'll change your prescription. That'll cost you $400 and give you 2 more glasses. And in 6 months, come back. And by then you should end up at this, what they call the sweet spot, which is very nice. The sweet spot where you're blind enough that Medicare will pay for your surgery for cataracts. So, God, it sucks getting older. Swear to God. Although I don't have as much to complain about as many people. Rest the wood. Health-wise, I do really well. It's just my eyes that are annoying as hell. So somebody tell me good news. I had cataract surgery. It's not a big deal. That's what everybody says. That's what I'm hoping. I always said I'd rather go deaf than blind. Why? Because I can do sign language. And since everything I do is sight-oriented, the show, all my research work, I'm a writer, I'm an artist, all these things. I think I'm an artist anyway. But anyway, all of these things are very sight-oriented. And I figured if I went deaf, well, I'll just go hang out at Gallaudet. I'm in DC. There's a ton of deaf activities around here. I will sign and I will never even notice that I'm having any issues, because communication is clear when you're signing. You don't even think about the fact that you're not using your voice because you don't need to. One day I had laryngitis. I really couldn't speak. It was driving me nuts. So I went down to Gallaudet and did some stuff down there, met with some people, and all day long I was just signing, and I felt great. And I came home and my daughter walked up and I went, oh, what kind of crap? Oh, I forgot I have an issue. So I'd rather go deaf than blind, but As fate would have it, no, I'm going to go blind and not deaf. Yes, I was an interpreter. I have 13 years of sign language interpreting for the hospitals. Yes. No, dumb is not an approved word anymore. Michaela, by the way, just to let you know, because many deaf people, they used to say deaf and dumb because they figured that deaf people couldn't speak. And the old term was dumb if you couldn't speak. Not that you were dumb in the head, but dumb meaning not able to vocalize. Actually, a lot of deaf people can speak very well. So they actually don't have trouble vocalizing. They may have gone deaf later in life and have a perfectly good voice, or they may have studied it and can really speak well, amazingly. A good portion of deaf people who learn to speak sound French. They sound French like this. No, I'm mocking. No, I'm not mocking people. This is just the way it sounds like. And so the proper word is simply deaf. Whether you can speak or not is inconsequential, but that's just, in every country, it's very, very different as to how people view the deaf community and how people respond to it. I tend not to get all bent out of shape about crap because I'm like, whatever. But it's interesting. By the way, here's a fascinating thing before I start the show. There's a difference between deaf blind and blind deaf. I want to ask how many people know that. Well, what do you think? What's the difference between deaf blind and blind deaf? Does anybody know? No, that does suck. I don't want that. I'm just amusing myself with some of your comments. I worked with handicapped deaf adults. By the way, that's also these days. I just changed word. It is now disabled. So I can't keep up with it either, even though I worked in the community. I never thought about it. No, we usually don't think about that. Deaf, blind, and blind deaf, the order that it occurred, like one is from birth and the other happened later in life. Yes, but how does it affect the communication style? The first word is the most dominant. Very good, Allison. See, this is part of profiling. When you're profiling even crimes, you have to understand the culture that comes with it. Yes, the first word is the most dominant. That is correct. But how does this affect communication? Does anybody know? How would that affect communication? Because I have interpreted for deaf blind people and for blind deaf people. I've interpreted for both. I'm adjusting dumb. Luckily, I have a very strange sense of humor, so I don't get all bent out of shape because I laugh with you. Dumb. Okay, let's see. Dog discussions. Blind deaf. It is hard to learn sign language. Bingo. That is correct. You can't. You're not allowed to Google the right answer. Okay, I'm going to tell you now. So dogs discussion came up with the basic correct thing. If they're blind, they wouldn't be able to see signing. Correct. So here's what happens. If you're born blind, so you're blind, you go deaf, or you're blind deaf, either way. You cannot see the signs. You grow up without the sight. So like Helen Keller, or people who maybe have been blind and then go deaf, the regular sign language where you would be expressing things out here, like my family lives where over there, and what do? We get together, we have a party. See, all this stuff is out here. Blind people can't see that crap, and they don't learn that stuff. They're not growing up with sign language, so they learn A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, and things like so what happens is they're very much oriented toward finger spelling in the hand, and they're very good at it. You could finger spell in the hand very quickly, but they're not very oriented toward signs that are out here because they were blind from birth. So that's just not something they're into. So finally, when they do learn signing, a lot of it is in the hand. Deaf blind, they've been deaf all their lives. They've been signing like this, looking across and chatting, and suddenly they go blind, and it really sucks for them because their whole life has been sighted. What they do is very different. What they do is when I'm interpreting for somebody who's deafblind or hanging out with somebody who's deafblind, they will sign normally because they know I can see. So they will say, "Oh, what's up? Are you going to go to the party? Oh, maybe I'll see you later." You know, they'll be signing in the air. When I go to sign, they put their hands out and they put their hands on top of my hands and they can feel what I'm doing. So what I have to do is there are signs which if I sign go and they have their hands on mine and they feel that, they'll know it's go. If I sign house, they'll feel me doing this. They'll know it's house. Go to the house. And then if I sign something that is not that easy to feel in space, I have to change that to either finger spelling or find a way to express it so that they understand. So tomorrow. So it's a really tricky thing, but they will sign normally and then they will put their hands out and they will put their hands on top of mine and I will learn how to adjust so that they can understand. With blind deaf people, since I've grown up blind, I would then mostly sign within their hand fingerstone. Interesting difference. So it's a world is full of fascinating stuff. You know, it really is. So just wanted to share that with you since for no reason whatsoever, I ended up going there. Okay. All right. Did I get it right? Yeah, first time ever. But one of the things I talk about with profiling a lot of times is we're profiling not only crime, but life. So if you're profiling a crime, you have sometimes understanding the culture is very important because when you're trying to profile a crime that happens in a culture outside of your own. For example, I live in Prince George's, Maryland. That's where I live. I have traveled a lot, so I understand certain other cultures. For example, I'm very familiar with Indian culture. Not as much as Indians are familiar with Indian culture, but I spent a lot of time in India. So I understand stuff from India, which people who've never been to India have no clue. When I tell a person I went to India, the first thing they say is, "Did you go to an ashram and do yoga?" I'm like, "No." That is not what India is. It is not all ashram and yoga. And I've been spent a lot of time in Mexico and Hawaii. But if you suddenly ask me, what about the Philippines? I'm like, I don't have a clue. I've never been to the Philippines. I don't know. I don't know their culture. I don't know the layout of the land. I don't know anything really outside of, a few travel videos. So if you're looking into another culture, and it includes subcultures, because I don't know certain subcultures. I had people ask me, I grew up in McLean, Virginia, which is kind of wealthy. And of course, I spent time in Hollywood. I spent time on TV. I had my literary agent wonder if I could write like a romance that included rich people. I ain't got a clue. I've never been in that culture, really. She looked at me and thought I might have been, but I have not a clue. I don't know how rich people act. I've never hung around rich people. I'm not a really romantic person. I wish I could have been romantic. I just never been. So I don't know how to write that stupid book. I haven't got a clue. So, I don't know the subculture of that. And I don't know certain subcultures like, there's a lot of subcultures I don't know because I don't live in them. And so when you go to analyze something, you can write a book. You better understand the subculture because otherwise people are going to tear you to shreds in the book you wrote if you're writing a fiction story or something. But also in criminal profiling, if you don't know the subculture, you haven't got a clue how things really work. And then you better go find somebody who understands that. So like I did a show on, I think it was Disability Urine, the Gallaudet serial killer. I did a show on him and also, what's his face, Blade Runner in South Africa, about does disability mean inability? And since I knew a lot about their subculture, I interpreted for a guy at the hospital once. He was a criminal. And, but yes, deaf people can be criminals. And the dude was like, he said, well, I break into houses of deaf people. And I'm like, why would you make deaf people your victims when you're deaf yourself? He said, well, they can't hear me coming. Dude's right. He can't. He knew they were deaf and they wouldn't hear him coming. So as a deaf person, you have to worry about the noise he made. But if he went to a hearing person's house, he wouldn't know if they'd heard him or not. I'm like, that's a good one. Pistorius, thank you. Good old Oscar Pistorius should have stayed in prison forever. Yes, he should. But, this is what's very, very interesting. Michaela says, I know how to sign. I can flip people off. I would show you some alternative deaf signs for what you're talking about, but I'm having trouble. YouTube has just demonetized 2 of my videos, and I have no idea why, and I'm just losing money like crazy. So if I do that, I'm gonna be in trouble. He can't hear the people, but they're all deaf, so what does it matter? They're deaf. That's the advantage. So he picked them because they were deaf. So, there's a lot of interesting things in cultural and subculture that is interesting in criminal profiling, which always is useful to understand. And my other channel, which I am promoting because I want to, and because I can, my other new channel, which is Dear Profiler Pat. I answer, it's an advice channel. I'm basically profiling life, profiling your lives. And sometimes there's a cultural issue that's involved, and I have to very carefully discuss that, because if you're not part of that culture and you're trying to give advice to somebody in a culture, and again, culture, subculture, whatever, you have to understand how things actually work. And sometimes I have to say, okay, I don't know exactly this, but I can tell this vague stuff over here, or how it might have influenced a number of people in a number of different ways. Be careful of that, because, and I have seen criminal cases go south because the profiling is they just didn't have a clue about that particular culture or subculture. So it's very, very important. All right, so let me go on to before I go on to actual stuff, I do want to mention one more thing, which I just want to let you know. This is a play. This is called Do Portugal. This is, you see the it's a circus, and if that circus goes around the United States, if you're in the United States, and you should go to it. It's incredibly reasonably priced. It's always in a mall parking lot. It looks like it's gonna be some like sleazy thing or some really crappy thing. It's not. It's fabulous. This is the second time I've been there with my family, my daughter, my granddaughter, and friends and everything. We all go there. And it is a great performance, a mixture of juggling, magic, aerobatics, great clown that is actually not someone who's actually fun and doesn't want to make you punch him in the face. No red nose, just good stuff. It's just a great performance. It's long enough to get your money's worth. There's an intermission. You think, wow, there's still more, and yet the second half they make it a little shorter so you don't like. But everything's close up. It's just absolutely amazing. And when you hear Do Portugal, you immediately think it's from Portugal. It is not. It's actually started in Mexico 100 years ago. I think it was 100 years ago. No. Oh, I'm sorry. What are we on? What year are we on? Okay, maybe 50 years ago. Yeah. Okay. So they started in Mexico, and Portugal is a name in Mexico. So and it may be that there is a Portuguese contingent in Mexico, a European, more blondish contingent in Mexico. But when you watch the show, you're like, wow, there's a lot of really blonde people in that show. Are they Mexican? And then there was a great guys who did these great aerobatics who are definitely not white. They were definitely black. So I'm like, are they from Africa? Are they from the Caribbean? Are they from Brazil? Are they from, there is a place in Mexico that has black people. I'm like, where are these guys from? And then they kind of announced that the people in their show come from all over the world, but they don't give you any of their names. I don't know why. It's kind of squirrely, but they come from all over the world. So I don't know. They're just finding people they can. So it's run by a family from Mexico, but whether there's Mexicans in it or not, I have no idea. But it's a great show. Wonderful for the family. Reasonably priced. Comes to your town. Go check it out. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen. And I just enjoy it because of the way they do it is so nice. It's so much fun. And it's just a cool show. There are no animals in the show. It's all people, and just a great show. Okay, so I don't know if have any ever seen Do Portugal? Not Egypt. No, I've been in Egypt. It wasn't there. No. Never seen it in Houston. It's got to be in Houston because it is out of Mexico. So it is. Oh, I do not have not. I wasn't even born in 1920s, Michaela. You have to get off that stuff. Okay. It's a great show. But anyway, I just want to let you know because I like people to do things outside of crime because I think it's healthy to do things outside of crime. So let's go to crime. All right. So I was asked. There's this new information coming out, and since I'm doing the show early, so the UK people can be here. Noah Donohoe. This is an Irish case in Belfast, and I've talked about this case before, but it has gotten more play again, and let me tell you why. Okay, so this is the child. This is Noah. I think his name is Donohoe. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. This is his mom who's with him. This is his dad, who has never been in his life. Unfortunately, never even got to really meet him. He hoped to meet him before his son got killed or died, one of the two. This also is mom, Fiona. Her name is Fiona, and there she is with her son being goofy at Christmas. Now, and she did. I want to point this out. She did a story. She did a thing on James English. I want answers for my son, the Noah Donohoe story. I'll link that below. I have a mixed feeling about James English, in case you're wondering. He did stuff about Madeleine McCann. He had Bert Stellander on twice now. Never questions Bert Stellander. He called, foreign detective, which is not really a detective. He was into golfing and stuff. And he got fascinated with the case, and that's his right. He did a lot of studying of the case, and that's his right too. But James English has had him on twice as if he is the expert on this case. So James English rather bothers me in the sense that on one hand, I really like him because he allows his guests to actually freaking speak. And you don't, some shows you see the person interrupt constantly. Or there's a panel and the person tries to say something and the panel attacks them. So I appreciate James English for allowing the person to really speak fully. And you see that with Bert Stellander. He's able to present his entire whatever. And James English just sits back. So I like that about him. He does the same thing with this case with Fiona Donohoe. He allows her to speak. And it's very heartrending listening to her. She's lost her son and she is totally broken. And I get it. And so I really like the interview for that reason. The only thing I wish James English would do is I see sometimes he has an agenda. He believes one certain thing and he allows one group of people to show up at a show and not others. James English has never asked me to speak on Madeleine McCann. And if you're going to have Bert Stellander on, maybe you should have Gonzalo Amaral or myself on to talk about how we don't agree with Bert Stellander's viewpoint. Have a different show. We don't have to argue with Bernd. We could just present two things. He's also got one on Luke Mitchell, and he's really pro Luke Mitchell being innocent. Does he allow anybody on who doesn't think so? I haven't seen that. And I wouldn't mind talking about that case, but I have not been invited. So I like the way he interviews in the sense he gives a person a chance to speak. But on the other hand, he never asks any particular questions that are like he never challenges. And then he never has the other side, at least that I've seen. So I like him and I like some of what he does. Some of it I'm not fond of. So anyway, this was a good interview. He never challenged her or anything, but we got to hear her side of what she wanted to say. So I'm okay with that because it was very interesting to listen to her and what she was going through. Now, if you don't know this particular story, let me read to you what happened to Noah. And hold on a second, I got to find it. Okay. I happen to like Reddit. Reddit is a lot of people are very negative about a lot of things. They hate TikTok or they hate Facebook or they hate Reddit or what. I actually have every one of these ways of communicating. I have Twitter, I have, which is now X, and there's many things at Quora. I have Quora. There's things I find in each one of these things that give me information I couldn't get elsewhere, and so this happens to be from Reddit. And I think this is really well done because if you want to explain something about this person put a very good bit together. And so here's what happened. His 14-year-old Noah Donohoe was a normal, bright young boy living his life in Belfast, Northern Ireland. He excelled at math and science in school and received awards. This is all true. He was also musically inclined. He played the cello. And as can be expected of any teenage boys, he also enjoyed playing soccer with his friends. The principal of Noah's school even referred to him as a perfect gentleman and the heart of a lion, with the heart of a lion. A very nice boy. Clearly a very nice young man. And I don't see anything to say that's not true. All that to say, the events of June 21st, 2020 could not have been more unexpected. Sometime in the early evening of that day, young Noah grabbed his backpack filled with a few books and his laptop and took off on his bicycle to meet some friends to work on a project for school. This sounds normal. Tragically, he would never make it. Okay, so there's a lot of CCTV footage all over the place, which shows parts of his travels. So here's the timeline. 5:45, Noah leaves his home with his backpack on his bike to meet his friends at Cave Hill Country Park, only a couple miles from his school. Here he plans to work with his friends on the aforementioned school project. 5:50, he's seen riding down Royal Avenue, a street running through the busy downtown of Belfast. By the time he gets to the end of it, he's without his backpack. No witnesses ever came forward claiming to see Noah was separated from his backpack. Now, mind you, he's on his bike, but without his backpack. We're talking a 5-minute period of time. He's leaving his house 5 minutes with a backpack. 5 minutes later, he's riding the bicycle. So he's on the bike, but without the backpack. We do not know where he got separated from his backpack, and no CCTV footage of this event has ever been found. All right, 6 p.m. Now we're talking 10 minutes later. He is seen crashing off his bike. A bus driver comes over to help, but he rides off before he can get there. This is very interesting. He crashes his bike. Why? We don't know. Somebody tries to help him. He essentially flees the scene. A few minutes later, he's seen about 3 miles from his destination. A few minutes later, from his destination on Northwood Road, an area he's unfamiliar with. However, now he's seen without his helmet or his clothing. His hoodie, his helmet, and his shoes would later be found scattered by local residents. His underwear, t-shirt, and shorts have never been recovered. Sometime after, Noah is seen naked riding his bike in a cul-de-sac. So, 2 people do see him riding around a cul-de-sac naked. Now, his mom, if you watch the interview, is very upset about this, and I understand her reasoning. You see a young boy. By the way, he is a 6-foot young boy. I think he's 6 foot. He's a tall guy. So from a distance, you can't tell how old he is, riding around naked on a bicycle. Both of these women who saw him thought it was Father's Day and he was playing a joke. They both said that. Now, and the mom's a little suspicious. She's like, "Well, you should get together and come up with that story." But they have no reason to lie about this. Did they call for help? No, they didn't call the police and say naked kids running around. They just thought doing some stupid stuff. Have we seen stupid stuff like this? Yes, we have. Do I blame the women? I would have liked for them to have contacted the police. Personally, I understand the moms. If my son was riding around naked on a bicycle, I wish the neighbors had followed through with, "Hey, something may be wrong here," because he shouldn't be riding around the street on a bicycle naked. Even if it is a joke, it's not okay joke. But they didn't see that he was being followed. They didn't see that he was in trouble. So they're like, weird kid, That's what people think sometimes. So then you see naked riding his bike. 6:03. Now we're talking at 6 p.m. He rides off from the bus. At 6:03, just 3 minutes later, he's riding around naked. And then he's seen walking naked alongside a house that's on the CCTV in the direction of a storm drain. As far as we know, it's all the footage we have. At 9:30 p.m. that night, worried about her son's failure to return home, Noah's mother reports him missing. She initially became concerned when Noah failed to call around 6:30 when he should have been arriving at the park to meet his friends. About a day after Noah was last seen, they found the bicycle lying at the bottom of a driveway. That's where he was seen walking naked, but they didn't see him walking naked. They saw him riding naked. They searched the area. They did not find him. And then they kept searching. A few days went by, and they theorized some stuff. They're like, what the heck was this going on with this kid? They thought maybe he fell off his bike, hit his head, caused some disorientation that caused him to undress and wander off. Noah's family and the supporters were and still are skeptical of the theory. Eventually, they found his body in a storm drain, and he had drowned. So they discovered 14-year-old Noah Donohoe's body in a narrow storm drain behind Northwood Road. No sign of any kind of assault, just drowned. So, no evidence of another party involved in the death. So this is the basics on this. Now, the mom recently, she's been fighting this for quite a while now. And let me see I want to point out what she's saying now. Hold on. Okay. There was a theory that he committed suicide. She didn't like that. Mom did not like that. So she is now, this is a recent, let's see, this happened in 2020. We're called 5 years on now. It is understood, when did this come out? 2025. This is July 2025. The mother of Noah Donohoe has dismissed a report by a psychiatrist which states he might have died by suicide while distressed and struggling with his sexuality. Fiona Donohoe told the Sunday World that her son was raised in an open-minded family. And I want to say right now, I agree with her on that. I've listened to her. She sounds very, what can you say? First of all, she went to the U.S. as a nanny, and kind of illegally, and got pregnant by this guy, who was from, I think he's African. I forgot which country. And then she raised her child as a single mom. And I listened to her stuff about, there was a place across the street she was concerned about because there was an immigration issue there and some drug issues, and she was worried about that, but she was very soft about it. So I believe she probably was quite, I would say she's not overly conservative. This is not a political channel, so let's not go conservative liberal crap, okay? I just don't think she was overly conservative from what I see. Therefore, I think she probably was a softie heart-wise, and therefore was open to anything. I believe this. She said she was raised in an open-minded family in Belfast and around people of same-sex relationships, was not confused about his was not confused about his sexuality. It is understood the report has been seen by an independent investigation team looking at it. But his mother said there's absolutely no evidence that I've ever been made aware of that Noah was confused about his sexuality. In fact, our dynamic as a family has always been open discussion on all topics, including sexuality. By the way, the family is mom and Noah. Just to point this out, because I'm going to point this out again in a minute. So she said that the report only illustrates how little they know about her son's life and state of mind, telling the Sunday World to suggest this will be a factor to trigger Noah to consider suicide shows a little understanding the expert had into Noah as a teenage boy. Okay. Let me go back to the other information. Now, apparently, prior to his death, while the family claims Noah was happy and not suicidal, a psychiatrist examined witness statements, medical records, forensic reports, and CCTV has come forward in her investigation to say she believes Noah died by suicide as a result of, quote, low mood and struggling with sexuality. I don't know how she can quite come up with that. agree with his mom in the sense that she's probably pushing things a little bit and creating her own vision of what she thinks could happen. There's obviously a lot to unpack here, so let's start with why the psychiatrist believes this. Essentially, she came to the conclusion that Noah could not reconcile the possibility of himself being gay with his perception of Jordan Peterson's belief and values. This is Jordan. Where is he? Jordan Peterson. This is Jordan Peterson. He's got a YouTube channel. He's a highly conservative. He's a psychiatrist. Has his viewpoints on sexuality and blah, blah, blah. And so he has a right. Jordan Peterson has a right to have his viewpoints. And if you want to agree with his viewpoints, you do. And if you don't want to agree with his viewpoints, you don't. The question is, when you have a 14-year-old focusing in on certain things, the question is, why is he doing that? Essentially, she came to the conclusion he could not. Okay. So he had been looking up religious topics on the day of his death, possibly reflecting his inner struggle between his sexuality and his religious beliefs. Now, it's important to note that the only evidence of Noah struggling with his sexuality comes in a series of vague text messages to friends in which he says he is, quote, in denial and, quote, coming out. His family, friends, and teachers all claim there are no signs of him struggling with sexuality. Okay. So we don't know what the issues were that he was going through, but he was struggling with something and obsessing about something. Apparently, the night before, he disappeared for a bit, and then this is what happened the next day. Let me read a couple things Mom said here. That's kind of make me go, Now, I think she's a good mom, by the way. I do. I think she was a single mom who's doing everything she could to raise her son well. 100% believe that. And we all do that as moms. We try to do our best. Sometimes, unfortunately, there's a society around us, and there's also our interaction maybe not the interaction they need. She says this. She thinks he's just the cat's meow, that he is the light of her life, a humorist, used to do voiceovers, crack me up. He had such a way with words and enthusiasm for life. We did everything together. And there's my concern. No dad in his life. His dad was not in his life. So there was no male, except outside of his teachers, there was no in-house male influence. And people argue about that, but there isn't. And he's growing up, and she says, we do everything together. Maybe a little too much. He could fit 25 hours in a day. He was just that type of person. The amount of time he had together when he wasn't doing his sport or music. I miss him so much. I miss him because of his hugs and his love. I know he's protecting and guiding me. I feel him constantly, but it's just hard not to physically be able to give him a hug. And then she says, he is her soulmate. That was the thing that struck me the most. Your child should not be your soulmate. I understand that if you believe in many lives, this person could come in and out of your life as your husband one time, your father another time, your child is another time. I get the concept. I also think that the relationship may have been suffocating. He may have done everything for his mom. They're like fighting the world together. He's there for everything for her. And when he grows up, and she said he was having mood swings. She goes, but he's just a teenager, so that's normal. But she was noticing ups and downs and mood swings. So as much as she said he wasn't having issues, he was having issues. Something was bothering him to the point. Something wasn't going right. And many people believe he had a psychotic break. And I tend to lean toward that theory because for someone in that short period of time to end up naked riding around a bicycle, it's not normal. She wants to believe that there were these two men in the area, and they because they were authority figures, they told him, take your clothes off, and he just did it. Get out of here. No, I think you're trying to explain why he didn't do it himself. No sign of any physical violence. In a very short period of time, he seems to have had this, what looks like a psychotic break. Why that happens, he's a 14-year-old kid that's about that time, which we do see that. I don't know. They did not find drugs in his system. Was he ever doing any drugs? I don't know. But schizophrenia can onset in teenage boys, especially if they're having some major issues. Sounds like a great kid. You sound like a good mom. But I do think that there was whatever was happening in his brain and his life led to this very tragic event. I don't see any outside participation. And I think she's going to fight that forever because she's not like many parents of children who do stuff when they're teenagers, whatever. They don't, the guilt trip is too hard. The loss is too difficult. And when you watch her with James English, you see she's broken over this. It's her only child, and it's horribly sad. But I also don't think it was I don't think there was a third party involved. I don't. It's very, very sad. You know, this is true, especially for a mom that feels she knew him inside and out. And there we have the problem. A lot of us do not want to accept, especially as parents. We don't really know our kids inside and out. My parents didn't understand me at all. Of course, I was weird. But anyway, they were like, what's wrong with her? A lot of times we don't know what's going on inside. And what a person is they're experiencing, it's their trajectory in life. It's not, that's why I'm concerned about this. We're soulmate things. When you say soulmate, you're trying to say that person you understand each other 100% and you're going the same direction. When indeed he may wanted to veer off. He may want to be himself. He may felt he couldn't be himself. He had to do what he had to do. I don't know that this is true, but this is, as a parent who has been accused of being overprotective of my children because I homeschool all three of those kids, and they will give you stories just to make sure that you agree with other people. I did what I thought I needed to do at the time. Did I understand them all completely? Not necessarily. Now they tell me stories. I'm like, seriously, you did that? What? I'm like, I have no memory of it. And they're like, yeah, Ma, behind your back, we were exploring such and such, even though you were doing your best to make sure we couldn't. That's what parenting is about. You're raising three people. They're going into the world. They have their own trajectories. They have their own lives. They're not us. And so don't make them you. But a lot of times we don't see that. We're just trying to do the best for them. Her son seemed like he was doing well. He's doing well in school. He seemed to have friends. There was some issue over, lockdowns and stuff at the time that were depressing, and him being maybe hanging on social media longer than he should. There are things, nothing you can't control everything. But she may not have known him as well as she thought she did. But it's sad. It's just sad. Martina says soulmate is just inappropriate, and that she says that publicly is telling. She's not aware how weird it sounds. And I think that may be true. When there's a lot of times when you're a single parent, because they're the ones doing and especially if it's one-on-one, sometimes they do have a very close relationship with a child, very close. And sometimes it works out fine. I know that there's mom and daughters who are just the best of friends, and they go do all kinds of crap together. And they stay the best of friends through years, and maybe they're the support each one of them needs. So I'm not saying it can't work out, but a lot of times it's also maybe not appropriate to have that level of feeling connected, so that person cannot go on and live their own life. So I don't know. She may not think it sounds weird at all, but it's concerning to me. It's almost like, is he your child or is he your husband? I mean, what is it? What is it you're trying? What kind of relationship are you trying to have with him? Now, I'm not saying anything sexual here, mind you. I'm just saying that the excessive closeness could be problematic. Probably didn't have the heart to tell her to give him space. And Kara, I think you're correct. When you're raised by someone who's doing everything for you, it's really hard to say, back off, or I want something different than what you want. The person's giving everything to you, everything. And you're like, stop doing that. And that also makes them happy. It gives them hope. It gives them meaning. And you're going to feel like you're going to rip that away from them. So there's a lot of, things that are difficult to deal with, especially when you're a teenager in a situation where, sadly, with teenagers, a lot of times they don't understand that this may not last that much longer. You're 14, and when you're 18, go away to college. You'll be free of that kind of stuff. But At the time, it may not feel that way. So it's sad. It really is. I think he was a good kid. And I think she's a good mom. I just think there's something a little off there. Clarissa says, agree, strange relationship, maybe unhealthy, but I don't think foul play. I don't see any foul play, but I don't know that she's ever going to accept that. Because, yeah. Yeah, this is the princess says childhood soulmate is creepy. That should only be another adult. I agree, but I'd say I think she's kind of maybe got that spiritual thing where you can you could the theory that you can go through lives and have been with somebody that is in a different relationship with you than you are today. I know people believe that because they think, well, it's possible. I know I kind of thought that with my dad. My dad and I, he was my dad. I was his daughter. But, they crossed my mind like, could we have been in a different relationship in a different lifetime? Husband and wife, brother, sister? Who knows? Could be. And then when he came into this life and we're in this situation, could be. I thought about that, if you're looking at the concept of reincarnation type of stuff. And so I understand the concept, but when you say somebody's your soulmate, that first of all, it's hard enough to say that when you meet somebody who's going to be your husband, wife, that even puts you where the concept of that, there's no other person in this world for you because this person is your soulmate and you're glued together like that. You found each other again. Even that has sometimes I'm a little concerned about the concept that how can I say this? That we're not individual beings, just happen to come together and find a way that we support and share our lives together, that somehow we have some psychic connection to the point of we are to be together and not to be not together. See if that makes any sense to you. I say I'm not an overly romantic human being. So, Lord. That's an interesting point. She might have also been aware that he will be pulling away soon and put even more pressure in the sense of love and affection. She might, when your kids are teens, it's tough. I mean, it can be really tough. I mean, you feel like they're leaving you. And it can be a lot of pressure. That's true. No, there are no injuries. He supposedly drowned in the storm drain, and they can't really figure out why he was in there, but there's no sign of any injuries. And since his behaviors were so odd prior to that, it's not like he was kidnapped and then ended up being beaten and put into a storm drain. Now, on that note, I was asked to look at Tom Brown's body because we have another case where, interesting enough, let me turn Tom, where are you? Tom Brown, here we are. Okay, Tom Brown and his mother, Penny Meek, after a Canadian high school football game. I think this takes place in Texas, so don't think it takes place in Canada. It's very confusing. However, I was asked to look into this, and yes, I'm going to, and I was going to bring it up. It's funny because we go to Reddit on Tom Brown because there was a show called a podcast called Tom Brown's Body, and there's still a question of whether he took his own life or he was murdered. Family says he was murdered, but there's a lot of squirrely things that go on. And so it's interesting. Almost everybody thinks that and listed that he was not murdered. That's the basic belief. Now, one of the things that happened was Philip Klein got involved. If you remember Philip Klein, he's the guy that was involved in, okay, now I'm going to blank. I did a whole show. Oh, the little boy that went missing. Come on, somebody help me out here. Help me out here. Who's the boy that went missing and they got Philip Klein involved? Went missing in the, not those guys, no. Like they went out camping and he went missing. Not Sebastian. No. They went camping. Family went camping. Not Sebastian Rogers. No. Oh, geez, I'm just blanking here. People always wonder, like I said, Alzheimer's or no, it's like I do too much stuff and I just There's so many names. I can't. Thank you. Okay. Not proper spelling, but Dior. Okay, Dior. Yes. Okay. So I did a show on that. If I remember, I will link it below. I did a show on that, and Philip Klein was hired, and he is the biggest flaming jerk. Sorry, guy, but the thing is, the theories he came up with were ludicrous. I was so appalled, and evidence did not support any of his theories. And so, while I can't exactly say what happened to Dior, I can say what Philip Klein said happened to Dior was nonsense, and that is a PI. Don't ever hire this guy. Well, these people hired this guy, and he was on Tom Brown's body on this podcast, and the amount of hate he got, amount of anger, that this guy's a charlatan, this guy's a scumbag, this guy's full of it. I mean, unbelievable. That was a good guess, Sarah. Welcome, Sarah, by the way. Nice to see you here. Hi, Lisa S. too. So this is another case where there's a lot of evidence prior to his disappearance, where they didn't find him for a while, that he had issues. He did seem to have issues. And then they found him dead. And they have never come up with a cause of death. Family says he was murdered, although there's a lot of really squirrely things, and Klein he should not have been in that mix, because he just adds to the nonsense. Most people think, which is interesting, because in my experience, when I look at Reddit and different places like that, and a child is become dead, majority of the time, even if they're wrong, they think the child was murdered. They will support the parents 100%. I keep going, no. There's no evidence of homicide. And in the case of Noah Donohoe, yes, I was really surprised to see how many people thought he did indeed take his own life and was a psychotic breakdown of some sort. And the same thing is true for Tom Brown's body, that they think that he was not murdered, in spite of the fact that the evidence is not really conclusive. So I thought I'd do a thing on that here. I may not. I'm not going to. I may do a whole show on it, just because I think it's rather interesting, and I want to examine more about what actually happened to him, because it's a very interesting case. It's very, very interesting as far as the evidence goes, or the lack thereof, or it's a lot of confusing crap. So I might want to do more on that. So I decided I wasn't going to do anything here on it, because I think I would shortchange it. So, yeah. So I might do a whole separate thing on that. Now, let me go to something else here. All right, let's go to, I want to mention this just because it annoys the crap out of him. Okay, so somebody mentioned that Bill, no, I can't remember. I forgot how to pronounce the dude's name. Bill Noguera, I guess it's pronounced. I mean, I pronounce it Spanish like Noguera, but okay, maybe it's Noguera. This is the guy on death row that murdered his girlfriend's mom to get the insurance money. This is the guy that Ken Maines has had on his show over and over again, and they calls him a profiler. So now he's on. This is on Yellow Cottage. Well, Yellow Cottage does a bunch of really good stuff on Karen Reed. Yellow Cottage Tales. This is what the channel is. Does really good stuff on Karen Reed, and doesn't fall for a lot of the nonsense on that show that's out on the internet. Yet he has Bill on his show and calls him death row profiler. Okay, I just want to point this out. People ask me, do you think that there's discrimination against women in law enforcement? Do you think there's discrimination against women as profilers? Do you think there's ageism? Yes, yes, and yes. And one of the things that annoys me when I see this profiler term given to Bill, who is just a psychopathic murderer, is on death row, and they give him this, oh my God, you know, he's not just that he's hanging out with killers, but that he's been studying on death row. He's been studying books. He's been reading FBI books and stuff like that. You know, when I got into the business, I have been very open and honest about this, that I was self-educated in profiling. I did seminars and stuff like that, but I also read 400 books. 400 books on every aspect of profiling, crime scene analysis, forensic pathology, serial homicide, serial kill, whatever. I did massive amount of studies, and I read every one of those books all the way through with notes, going on to every other book I could get a hold of. I did that because there were no courses. Now, I did eventually develop the first criminal profiling certificate program in the United States for Excelsior College. But interestingly, in spite of the fact that I did all of this and am not a psychopathic murderer, I am often attacked as being not a real profiler because I wasn't with law enforcement or the FBI. I'm not a real profiler. In spite of worked many, many, many cases, and I've studied for years and all of this, I'm not a real profiler. But, and everybody has the right to their opinion. If you think I'm not a real profiler, so you may think that. But it's interesting that Bill, the psychopathic murderer on death row, is considered a profiler by people, including Ken Maines, who calls me a crazy old grandma. Crazy old grandma because what? I'm older because I'm female, but your killer dude, you sit there in awe of him like you're his fanboy. Oh, what do you think, Bill? What do you think? The dude's a psychopath. He has no great knowledge. He's read some books and he says some garbage, and most of the time isn't correct. But isn't that fascinating? So the allure that psychopaths have, murderers have, as if because they live in a world that we do not, that somehow they have some underlying brilliance and underlying understanding of things that we do not. And because I'm just an older female, crazy old grandma, I couldn't possibly understand these things. I'm just talking some shit. It just blows me away. But that is sometimes what we see. And so the answer to that is yes, women are discriminated against in law enforcement and in profiling. And ageism is huge, because you will have men go on until they're looking like they are 1 foot from the grave, and they're still being respected. And women are called old crones and old ladies and a lot of insulting things. And it all comes down to, well, how good you look. Do you look your age? Well, no, because I have a filter on, damn it. Do everything I can, but unfortunately, the filter never goes below the neck. Damn it. Okay, we don't want to look at that. But there is this ageism thing, and men suffer from ageism too, but women suffer tremendously from ageism, and it's just absolutely a fact. And I live with the fact. I'm a realist, and I do everything I can to enjoy life anyway. But I just tell you, when you see Bill just being touted as some kind of brilliant profile, it just makes me want to throw up. Oh my God. Linda says, Ken Maines, I turned the show on. It lasted 3 minutes. Guy's a piece of work. The sad thing is here, and I'll be honest about it. I have promoted Ken Maines quite a few times, especially before he called me a crazy old grandma and got really nasty. I promoted him because although he clearly is his own publicist, he says the most, world renowned, all this kind of stuff. And he says it himself. Now, I've had people call me world renowned, but that was a publicist working for a publisher. I never said that shit. He says it for himself. He promotes himself as being the biggest, best, and the brightest ever. But I like the way he explains things, because even though I disagree sometimes on his conclusions, because sometimes our conclusions are different, like West Memphis 3, he thinks they're innocent, I think they're guilty. But at least he explains things and allows you as a viewer to look at both sides and see what you think. And I'm okay with that. That's why I say, James English, why don't you have me on your show instead of just Bernd Stellander? Bring me on and let me present. Then people can look at the both concepts and decide for themselves. So I never had an issue because I like the fact that Ken Maines did at least present his thinking. And so I still say I'm not totally against Ken Maines' show, in spite of what he says about me, because he does explain himself. And there's so few people out there on YouTube that aren't just storytellers or saying crap, that actually explain why they think the way they do. Even if I don't agree with them, at least explain it. and have some background to, why you think this. So that's why I'm not totally anti the guy, although he does piss me off because I think he's kind of a jerk. But other than that, he could be a great guy. But I just wish he'd stop promoting himself as being the like cat's meow, and he's like the better than everybody who ever walked the face of the earth. Oh, Clarissa says Pat's the only person I watch anymore because everybody else is. Well, thank you, but I do believe in having a variety. The same reason I say everybody should have variety in life of what they listen to crime stuff. If you're interested in that, fine, but for God's sakes, have a life outside of listening to true crime, because otherwise you'll get, demented. And you ought to see beautiful things in life, and true crime is not always about that. So that's why people always ask me, how, Pat, do you deal with if everything you do is about homicide? I'm like, because I got family, I got friends, I have fun things that I do, because I want to balance, and you always have to balance. So sometimes people write me and say, Pat, I won't be around for a while because I'm doing this cool thing. And I'm like, bully for you. That thing or me? Pick that thing. So, but yeah. That's good. That's a good point. Don't confuse the story with evidence and facts. You have to be very careful of that. Always, the story can be interesting. If they stay with basically the evidence and facts and just telling the story without an analysis, I'm okay with that. I even watch some of those shows because I need the basics. But also, you got to be actually, sometimes YouTubers are better than documentaries because documentaries often have the sides. Oh, and speaking of that, let me mention this. So let's I want to mention, yeah, he's back. John Ramsey. John Ramsey, the media loves John Ramsey. John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, says he's optimistic after a pivotal meeting with Colorado murder investigators. This was this is just on the 20th. Okay, this was yesterday. This is brand new. All right. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, the father of JonBenet Ramsey says he feels confident in the leadership investigating his daughter's 1996 murder. John Ramsey, the father of the 6-year-old beauty queen who was killed at her Boulder, Colorado home, met with local law enforcement Monday afternoon to advocate for a thorough review and new testing of crime scene evidence in his daughter's case. Yes, that crime scene evidence he knows is touch DNA. Ramsey told CNN he would ask Boulder police to do more DNA testing to help solve the 20-year-old murder. Using a genetic genealogy, a newer technology has been used to solve high-profile cases. This is true. Genetic genealogy works when you have enough DNA, so it's not a mixture of like 5 people, and therefore you don't know, it really isn't very useful. When you have 100% solid DNA, semen form, blood form, and you're like, okay, the case is 30 years old, but you've got semen that is this, and you've never been able to find that DNA profile in CODIS. You've never been able to find it, but you put that stuff through, and you're finding there is a cousin or a brother or somebody who has whatever connections that is familial DNA. Then you can finally track it back to the person who actually committed the crime. Absolutely great stuff. That's not what John Ramsey is looking at. He's looking at what has always been touch DNA, degraded DNA, and mixed DNA. And therefore, it's never going to come up with anything, in my opinion. After his meeting, Ramsey told CNN, I'm very satisfied and impressed with the leadership now in place at the Boulder Police Department, and I believe they are committed to do all they can using the latest technology. The latest technology only goes so far. Technology is great, but it cannot create full DNA profiles when there are none. This is the same thing we see happening with West Memphis 3, which I talked about last week. They got using a vacuum method, and they're saying they're trying to find some DNA. And now the defense team, instead of saying it's one of the stepfathers that killed the boys, now it's like some truck driver did it. Changed his whole tune. Why? Because he knows his DNA is probably going to be worthless, or come up with some vague thing, and you might as well try to blame it on a stranger but that you can't identify. So Ramsey says he believes Boulder officials are continuing to move the investigation forward using all available tools, and certain DNA is a significant tool I also believe has a high probability of identifying the killer. He knows it does not have a high probability. We can confirm that Chief Redtheme and members of our operations division met with the family this week, and they're sharing updates, and they can't answer any questions. And in an interview with CNN's Gene Cesaris, set to air Tuesday, oh no, not another one, Ramsey described his dogged pursuit to solve the case and why he favors using genetic genealogy, because it won't work. Genealogy will not work in this case. I think it's the key. I think it's the only way this case will be solved. Sure. Because the technology is there and we're going to insist and beg the police to use it, it's absurd not to. Okay, fine. We can use that. But when you come up with vague DNA, which you keep claiming is meaningful when it's all touch DNA, it is not meaningful. What's meaningful is the letter and where her body was found and what happened to her and all of your behaviors. That's what's meaningful. And by the way, the whole video I did on John Ramsey and the Netflix thing, which I showed no pictures, did not talk about the death of JonBenet Ramsey, and just talked about where I thought the inconsistencies were. That was my highest rated video of the year. And YouTube came back and demonetized it and took all the money I earned from it. And they just did that to another one of my videos too. The video about the grandmother who killed off 2 of her grandchildren, that was demonetized as well. Very tough. I don't know what's going on with YouTube. I've never had this problem before. In either one of the cases, I never showed any photos. I never got into any kind of real gruesome details. And I don't know. They're tightening up things. They don't want you to say anything negative about somebody. I don't know. We'll see if I get demonetized again on this because I mentioned John Ramsey. No, maybe I'm not supposed to mention John Ramsey or a child who's been found dead. I don't know. Ramsey says he's never seen any of the crime scene evidence. Actually, you were there in the room where the crime scene evidence was, so I'm pretty sure you saw it. For years, of course, we were the suspects. Yes, you were and still are. We were the prime suspects in the police mind and in many other people's minds. They made up their mind on day one because nothing made sense, and that's why people still have you as possible suspects. Prosecutors convened a grand jury in 1999, which returned an indictment on charges of child abuse resulting in death and being accessories to a crime, but ultimately said there was insufficient evidence to charge John and his wife Patsy in the killing. It was not until 2008 that a new prosecutor in the district attorney's office publicly cleared the parents and JonBenet's older brother of any suspicion of the death, citing new DNA evidence, which is not evidence. This is a political move, and the DNA evidence never proved. They just proved it wasn't their DNA because it was touch DNA, and it's meaningless. And I've said this, I don't know how many times, and I'll say it again because I think it's important. JonBenet is a child, and I have a granddaughter, and believe me, when she goes and hangs out goes to a children's party, those children drool on each other, roll across each other, stick their hands in each other's mouths, and then they would put their hands every place. That DNA is flowing between all of the children and in all of their clothing. So the fact that JonBenet would have any DNA in her clothing that wasn't the Ramseys is highly, highly probable. What I've never heard, and I'd like to see this discussed somewhere, and I've never seen it. I want to know whether they got the DNA from every child that she had contact with and every adult she had contact with in the recent, during that period of time, and every one of the children of the adults she had contact with, because touch DNA moves. So if a parent touches their child and then touches JonBenet, they can transfer even if JonBenet never touched the child. Did they DNA test every one of those people? And I don't have an answer on that. I've never seen it. What I have, the answer for the DNA appears to be 2 men and a woman, 2 male and a female DNA mixed together. That's one of the things we have. So unless 2 men and a woman snuck into the Ramsey house and killed JonBenet, then those 3 DNAs, which are mixed up and also partial, are garbage and may well be children's DNA. It's just when we say male and female, 2 males and a female, people automatically think 2 grown males and a grown female. They think 2 men and a woman. Could be 2 little boys and a little girl. But we never look at it that way. And you know why? Because the media doesn't present it that way. Because the media is often very deceptive. So, yeah, I find it strange that Martina says that people like John Ramsey go to CrimeCon. Well, CrimeCon is, I don't like CrimeCon. I did a whole show on that the other day during the Hangout. I did a show, part of the show on that. I don't like CrimeCon. I won't go to it. I think it's kind of disgusting. I think that going to be a fan of true crime and going there and meeting all these celebrity victims of crime and possibly commit murders, it doesn't sit well with me, and it's very expensive and all that kind of stuff. And it's a big party weekend, and I don't know. Yeah, no, not fond, not fond. Oh yeah, those Mexican women that kidnapped Sherry Papini. Sure they were, for sure. The grandma case, yeah, the grandma. Okay, I'll tell you right now. Look at my content because I got the big yellow sign, which means I just lost all my income on that. And believe me, I don't make a lot of income. Well, the Ramsey case, I made really the top income of the year, and they took all back. Now, mind you, the advertising was on the show. Everybody saw the advertising. But after they decided to demonetize it, they're not, I thought they weren't supposed to take back what they had already agreed to, but apparently they did. And I just saw it go down every day. I saw it disappear. So my entire income from that just vanished. But the one they just wiped out is, I'm on the roll on a second. I'm on my other channel. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to profiling of Pat Brown. And then we got to go, it was a video. Hold on a second. Content. And then we go to videos. View. Okay, Tracy Nix. Tracy Nix is the show. And you will see here. I see if I can put it in here. I don't know how I can see it. But Tracy Nix is the one on top. You'll see you see next to that little world sign, you'll see it's yellow. It's a yellow dollar sign. The one below is a green dollar sign. Gareth Williams, they did not demonetize, but they demonetized Tracy Nix. I don't know why I didn't even show a picture of a dead child, you know. So it got 11,000 views. I didn't make a ton of money off of it, mind you. Let me tell you what I did make off of it. Where is it? Okay, where is it? Okay. What the heck? Hold on a second. Video performance. Okay, here we go. I did make $70 off of that video. And I don't know that I'll keep that. I think they might take that away because they took away all the money I made on the John Ramsey one. And that was hundreds and hundreds. That was the best show. That was my best video of the year. And it wiped me out. Sometimes YouTube is a blessing and is a curse at the same time. It's the way it works. So YouTube hates Grammys. It's a free platform, and they get to do what they want to do. And so on one hand, I appreciate them tremendously for being able to earn a living from my home, to be able to educate and teach, and still get some money to be able to survive and do this. But it does. I've taken the loss of income, and last month I've lost 2/3 of my income in the last month, both off of YouTube and 1/3 off of Patreon, because Apple, instead of only taking 5%, is now taking 30% of all the income. So it's just an automatic 1/3 loss, because that's what YouTube takes. When you subscribe to YouTube for a channel, they take 1/3. If you give money to the person like the content provider like me, and you give me something, they do take 1/3. And they didn't do that at Patreon, but now they do. So on one hand, it's impossible to find ways to get people to support the channel without having these platforms. On the other hand, they can take what they want to take. It's like if you write a book, you get generally speaking, an author gets 15%. The publisher gets 85%. So unless you make a crap load of sales, you often don't make very much money on a book that you sell, that you worked on an entire year. I worked on Cleopatra for an entire year. I got a $12,000 advance. And that money I used to go over to Egypt and spend a month in Egypt to do research, that was $5,000 right off the top, 7,000 left. And then I had to buy tons of books, and that was down to 5,000. And of course, by the time I finished my research, I was probably down to $3,000 on the advance. And because I only got 15% of all the sales, I never made the advance back. So for a year's worth of work, I made $3,000. So there's a lot going on in how life really works, which is kind of upsetting. But on the other hand, you only have so many options. So for me, still happy. Pat needs to do another public live so Sarah can throw stripper dollars. I tell you, well, it's funny because I do appreciate the few public lives I've done, and I really don't like the stripper dollars. Like, please throw money at me. But if my show is going to be demonetized, I know it's going to be. I've done a few shows where I've said, look, I'm just going to open up to the public. It's going to be demonetized. I'm going to make zero money for all the research work I'm doing and the show. So I'm putting in 10, 12, 15 hours into a show that I can't earn anything on. So I really appreciate the support, the financial support on those. But I'll tell you something. I've watched another particular show that just isn't happy with me. But anyway, and what she does is, since she's answering questions from beyond, people want to know what happened to Uncle Joe. And so they'll throw $50 at, because the higher the money you give, that's when they pay attention to you and give you the answer. And so on shows like that, they can really rack up the cash because people are desperate to get answers, and the higher they basically, it's like an auction. The higher your auction money is, the more chance they're going to be paid attention to and given an answer. So then you can make a crap load of money. But my shows aren't geared to answering tons, specific questions like that. So it really doesn't quite work. That's just the way it goes. Clarissa, that's a nice thought. And yes, I have PayPal. People can go to my description and find PayPal and contribute that way. That is true. That's about the only way outside of Patreon or YouTube that it can be done. But the problem is, because we cannot control, it's a huge effort to try to set up things where you have ways for people to do this. I'm happy to get 2/3. I am. And it sucks that somebody else gets 1/3. But I don't have a way to put up stuff to develop an entire Patreon and the whole platform system. I can't set up YouTube myself. I can't have the outreach I have unless I do YouTube. So you have to accept certain things that, since it costs me $0 to set up YouTube, and all I have to pay for is the lights and the microphone. I do pay for StreamYard, which is $50 a month, which is how I stream. I pay for some things. And of course, research, books, documentary stuff. I pay for a lot of documentary services. I pay for that. But I don't have to actually pay for the platform. And that's one hell of a thing not to have to pay for. Because what I'm going to start, if I start my own little channel on my own little, on internet, you think I'm going to find anybody will ever find my channel? And the answer to that is no. They won't. It'll cost me a fortune to set up. I'm going to have to hire huge people to put the thing together, and nobody will find it. So there's reasons why an organization like, the difference between self-pubbing and getting somebody like HarperCollins to publish your book, it's different. It's, if you had the choice, you're probably going to take HarperCollins, which I've been with for one of my books. I got a good advance, so I never made the advance, but I got the advance, so I had the money in the pocket. And I did do one self-pub that was very, very good. But I've seen, sometimes you got to go with what works, even if you only get 15%. It's the way of the world, So just like you work for a company and the CEO gets $500,000 a year and you get 40,000, but you got to buy food. You do. You got to buy food. So, okay, let's see. A couple more things I want to do. I forgot to talk about this last week. I just thought it was an interesting case. Not that. This woman. So anyway, I think of this as, the thing, the cockroach goes in and doesn't come back out, or the mouse goes in and doesn't come back out, the trap. Well, when you off somebody, you might want to be careful about the fact the person goes into the house and doesn't come out. So anyway, this poor woman, here she is, and they were looking for her. She was critical missing. She was a mom of, she was 29 years old, and she lived in Prince George's County, where I live, and she was living with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend is Devontae Gray. He was 30 years old. And so anyway, what happened was Schuler's mom, this is Alexis Schuler. Her mom reported her missing on January 14th, and she'd been missing for 4 days. The detectives started investigating, conducting interviews, and gathering surveillance in an effort to find Schuler. MPD, that's Metropolitan Police Department, that's DC. Oh, okay. I guess I was in DC actually, but they sought the help of Prince George's County and Capitol Heights Police Departments, which found that surveillance videos showed Schuler going into the house on the afternoon of January 10th, but never leaving. During a preliminary investigation, officers observed Gray, that's this guy, in possession of construction materials that included cement, sheetrock, cinder blocks, bottle chemicals, large black storage containers, and plastic bags. Police also deemed Gray's house to be in dirty condition, but not suspicious, and cleared the call according to the charging documents. So they went in the house and looked for her, and they're like, okay, well, there's some materials here, and the house is kind of crappy, but whatever. You can't, just because people aren't the neatest, you can't arrest them for that. The Prince George's County Police Homicide Unit was contacted on Saturday, and it executed a search warrant, during which detectives found fresh drywall, acetone, lemon ammonia, and other construction and cleaning materials inside. That prompted police to remove the drywall, where a makeshift tomb was discovered under the stairs. You remember how Harry Potter slept in he was like a door under the stairs? Well, apparently this poor woman's, that was her last place where she was entombed, a makeshift tomb. The charging documents reveal detectives found a bin behind the drywall and fake brick and noted a human foot was visible. There was a large plastic bin wrapped in plastic wrapping behind a large amount of concrete that was poured by the defendant. She, Schuler, was located under large amounts of soil and hay. And they conducted the autopsy and found that she had been murdered. Gray denied her involvement in her death. How did she get underneath the stairs, Mr. Gray? But he eventually told he shot Schuler 2 or 3 times after the two got into an argument. And so then he placed Schuler's body in a plastic bin and tried to conceal her identity by burying her in the house. Now, it is a house, and I'm always curious, one of the reasons, here's a car in the driveway. One of the reasons people are often put behind walls, or, especially in apartments, or go out in bags, is because somebody doesn't have a car to take them away. And usually if you're in a situation where you can back the car up and just, lift that tailgate part, what do you call that? Lift that up, put her body in there in some plastic bags and drive her off to the woods. You're probably in better shape than if you try to entomb her under the stairs. The guy wasn't very bright, thank God. I don't know if he had I guess he didn't have much of a garden, so that. But, there are times when it works really well to bury somebody underneath the patio that you just added to the house. And there are, John Gacy definitely had a whole bunch of people he ran, put in his wall until he ran out of space and then tossed one off a bridge, and that did him in. So if you have some place where people aren't going to be missing, if you're not connected, see, this is the trick. So Gacy wasn't necessarily connected to the people the teenagers that he grabbed. So when they went missing, he could put them in the crawl space and nobody missed them. And they didn't say, let's go look at John Gacy's house. But when your girlfriend goes missing and you're living together and there's new drywall under the stairs, not the brightest choice, just not too bright, not too bright at all. Yep, that's correct. That was in the crawl space. Yes, Herbert the pervert put his bodies on his sprawling property. Yeah, if you're not a suspect, this is a good place to put the bodies. If you're a suspect, that's a whole nother matter. Just for example, we have woods behind this house, our house. It's not, I don't know quite what it's, I think it's part of it's county property. It's behind our house. It goes quite a ways, and then to another, eventually to another. Let's say that I decide to have a date with somebody. Nobody sees me go off with them, and I decide to brain the guy. Slam him with a cement block. And I've done this guy in, but nobody knows who he was going out with. Now, if that's possible, I could take him back there into the old woods, dig a nice hole, put him in it, and put some rocks on top of him, and maybe nobody will ever look back there. It'll be a good place because since they're not suspecting me, they're not going to look on my property. But once you become a suspect, that's when things go downhill as far as finding bodies on your property. So never have the connection. Just letting you know. Just letting you know. So I'm going. If you're going to buy cleaning equipment, don't do it at Walmart. Yeah, and don't go on Amazon and buy your stuff there too. So the whole trick is not to have links to yourself, either online at the store where you have your credit card has been, you're seen on camera buying the items, all these kind of things. So there's some really stupid people, luckily, and at least they get put away for being stupid. So so I think I'm gonna leave it at that today. It's 4:30. So I'm going to be back. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a video this week, but I might. And I'm not sure again what the Sunday show is going to be yet. But yeah. So thank you for being here. It's always fun to have everybody in the chat room, and you've always are great. And so cat time. My cat. Now he doesn't come till 7. About 7 o'clock. He's being really surly lately. So I think it's getting warmer now. He's like, I don't need the house as much. Now I can sleep outside. So, the barefoot bandit. I will get to the barefoot bandit at some point. Yes, I will. I find him amusing in certain ways. So knives on Amazon, Brian. Don't buy them there. Oh my God. Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Hi, Linda. I'm glad you did. Okay, so I will see some of you on Sunday, and I may put up something before then, and that is that. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.